When Diddy was arrested in September 2024, Katt Williams went to Instagram stories and posted an AI mashup of Diddy's mugshot on Wesley Snipes in New Jack City. The caption, "Diddy about to snitch on everybody." The internet laughed. But here's the thing. Katt Williams had been saying the names, specific patterns, specific industry connections for years before that arrest. In stand-up sets, in interviews, on Club Shay Shay. And every single time, the industry called him crazy, a has-been, a drug addict who couldn't let go of his bitterness. Then the federal indictment dropped. Then the civil lawsuits started piling up. And the names Katt Williams had been saying out loud started showing up in actual court documents. Today we go through what Katt actually said, what the court filings actually show, and why the gap between those two things is much smaller than the industry wanted anyone to believe. Everything in this video is documented and clearly labeled. Let's get into it. The Club Shay Shay interview with Shannon Sharpe in January 2024 is the most documented example of Katt Williams making specific claims about the industry. But it wasn't the beginning. Katt had been making observations about industry power dynamics, coercion, and the cost of saying no for years before that interview. In stand-up sets, he described walking through Diddy's parties and seeing things most entertainers were careful never to describe publicly. He named patterns. He named industries. He named the mechanism. On Club Shay Shay, he was more direct.
Club Shay Shay, yeah. I was trying to do something there that hadn't been done. I thought that I had figured out the algorithm mathematically, and I thought that I could show that. And when I wrote it out to kill the careers of the people I was talking about, right? But it was so vicious that I erased all of the knockout blows and just left the jabs so that the comic I'm talking about knows that I know your real story. Motherfucker. I'm gonna tell this, but you know what else I know. So, yeah, I was...
Do you want to tell any of those stories now?
Well, I'm saying... Now, just to protect my integrity and... all of these big dick deviants is all catching.
He described what he called big deviants, powerful figures across the entertainment industry whose conduct would eventually be exposed. He said all lies would be exposed. He said it was only a matter of time. He was dismissed almost universally at the time. In September 2024, a federal grand jury indicted Sean Diddy Combs on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud and coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The indictment described what prosecutors called freak-offs, prolonged coercive sexual performances that Combs allegedly planned, controlled, and recorded. The recordings were used as leverage. Victims were kept compliant through drugs, financial control, career threats, housing, and monitored movement. This is the documented federal indictment. These are the government's allegations, not proven at the time of writing, with trial proceedings ongoing. What the indictment confirmed, as a documented legal matter, was the basic architecture Katt Williams had been describing for years. A powerful figure at the center of an entertainment empire. Coercion mechanisms. Recordings used as leverage. A network of compliant people who knew enough to stay quiet. Katt Williams described that architecture in comedy clubs and podcast appearances before most journalists were willing to write about it seriously. The civil lawsuits that followed Diddy's arrest named or referenced a significant number of high-profile figures, some as defendants, some as witnesses, some in passing. Lucian Grange, the head of Universal Music Group, was named in at least one civil lawsuit, with the plaintiff alleging awareness of and proximity to Diddy's operations. Grange was subsequently dropped from that lawsuit. He has denied any wrongdoing. The Little Rod lawsuit named Jay-Z, whose real name is Sean Carter, as a co-defendant in allegations related to a 2000 MTV VMS afterparty. Jay-Z has publicly and forcefully denied every allegation. He filed a legal motion to unmask the attorney behind the lawsuit, calling the allegations false and the filing an extortion attempt. These are unproven civil allegations. Jay-Z has not been charged with any crime. We state that clearly. Former Bad Boy artist Dawn Richard, who had her own documented lawsuit against Diddy, became a key figure in the prosecution's case. Court filings documented that after Richard filed her lawsuit, Diddy allegedly contacted her over 128 times in 4 days, 50 calls in a single day, in what prosecutors described as an attempt to influence her testimony. That contact is documented in court filings. Katt Williams had referenced several of these names in these circles in various public appearances before the lawsuits made them mainstream news. The pattern of dismissal around Katt Williams follows the same template we have covered throughout this channel. Corey Feldman, Dave Chappelle, Terrence Howard. Someone with firsthand knowledge of how an industry operates says something specific and uncomfortable. The industry responds by attacking the messenger rather than the message. Crazy, bitter, irrelevant, drug addict, has been. The dismissal serves a specific function. It does not have to be coordinated to be effective. It simply requires enough people with enough to lose to stay quiet, and enough platforms willing to amplify the ridicule rather than investigate the claims. Katt Williams described this mechanism on Club Shay Shay directly. He said that in January 2024, Diddy's homes were raided in March. He was arrested in September. The timing is documented. Katt Williams is not the only person who was dismissed and then confirmed. We have covered Corey Feldman, dismissed for 30 years, confirmed by quiet on set. We have covered Terrence Howard, dismissed for describing industry coercion, confirmed by the Diddy indictment's description of exactly the mechanisms he named. The through line across all of these cases is the same. People with genuine inside knowledge of how power operates in entertainment describe specific patterns. They get dismissed. Years later, sometimes decades later, those patterns get confirmed in federal court documents, congressional testimony, or documentary investigations. The question worth sitting with is not whether Katt Williams was right about Diddy. The documented record answers that. The question is what else people currently being dismissed are right about. 50 Cent has been making the same argument about Jay-Z's silence that he was making about Diddy years before the arrest. Terrence Howard is still describing industry coercion in specific terms. Jaguar Wright, whose claims we have consistently labeled as unverified, keeps naming patterns that other sources are beginning to corroborate from different directions. The track record of dismissal, followed by confirmation in this specific industry, is now long enough to take seriously as a pattern rather than a series of coincidences. Katt Williams said it first. The court documents confirmed the architecture. The trial will determine the specifics. But the people who called him crazy, they're a lot quieter now than they used to be. Here's the documented record. Katt Williams described Diddy's operation. The coercion, the recordings used as leverage, the network of compliant people, in public appearances years before the federal indictment. He named specific patterns. He said all lies would be exposed. He predicted Diddy would snitch. The federal indictment confirmed the architecture he described. The civil lawsuits named figures he had referenced. The timeline of his predictions against the timeline of confirmed court filings is not subtle. He was called crazy. He was called a has-been. He was dismissed by the same industry he was describing. And he was right. That matters, not just for Katt Williams' reputation, but for how seriously we take the people currently being dismissed for saying things the industry finds inconvenient. Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.